Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Everyday Equity, Everyday Ways to Make a Change. My name is Pooja Kothari. I am the founder of Boundless Awareness. And with me today is Kamana Khadka. I am so happy to have her here. Kamana and I met over LinkedIn, as usual, is how I meet such amazing people. And we have so many connections in common that it was fascinating that we had never actually met before. Kamana is an inclusive culture strategist and the founder of Unlocking Inclusion. Kamana, welcome. So happy to have you here. I want to turn it over to you to give a little bit more about your background and your career.
Thank you so much, Pooja. I loved how you said my last name, Khadka. I haven't heard that in a while. So I've lived in the US since 2005, and my last name almost like gets skipped, right? It's difficult. I get it, it's difficult. But nobody pronounces it like with that clarity, Khadka. So I
Mhm.
really love that, and I appreciate you for that. So, hello everyone. This is my actually first LinkedIn Live, so I don't know what to expect, but I'm really excited to spend this time with Pooja. And we've had conversations before. We made lots of great connections. So, thank you for having me. Again, my name is Kamana Khadka. I'm originally from Nepal. I was born and raised there. And I work for Cable One, also known as Sparklight. Our customer facing brand is Sparklight. I'm their full time and their first DE&I manager. So shout out to Sparklight for all the great DEI work. But I'm also really excited to talk about unlocking inclusion, and I'll talk a little bit more as we go into conversation. So I am also a founder of Unlocking Inclusion, and my real goal is basically to equip leaders and create unfreezing moments for them. Because when we talk about DE&I, somehow even the greatest leaders, we see them freeze, right? Because they're like, I don't know what to say. Am I offending somebody? It's like we're focusing too much on academic and too much on so I just want to create those like unfreezing moments for leaders. So that's kind of like my goal with the tools and education, and just bring it to like everyday life. So thank you again so much for having me, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Amazing. I would love to know, everybody has a different answer to this question when I ask, well, why do you care so much? Why does DE&I matter to you? Why does anti-oppression work matter to you? Why does equity and justice matter to you? And some people are like, well, I grew up that way, or my parents instilled these values in me, or I have just um, uh, like a pull uh,
Hmm.
to advocate for equity and justice. So that's my question to you. Why there's so many people this isn't like so relevant for,
Hmm.
or they wouldn't spend as much time as you have. So why is it so meaningful to you?
I mean, there were so many moments. I think I was reminded why it's important to me. But as I said, like my journey, for me, it personally my journey to the United States started as an international student from Nepal. So I came to the United States in 2005, went to Grand Canyon University as an international student. And as soon as I walk in, it's like I started like speaking for my community, like representing my community. Suddenly there were
Mhm.
so many labels. Oh, are you a Hindu? I didn't realize it was a Christian university when I came in. And I went to a Catholic school back in Nepal, which wasn't a big deal because we never really talked about religion as much. And I never labeled myself as Hindu. And here I was given this label as a Hindu, as an immigrant, and all this. So I had to navigate that. So it's a very personal journey. But for me, when it really struck the chord was when I started volunteering for a refugee population. They were resettled right next to our university. There was like a small apartment complex, and I just started seeing these people that are dressed differently, a little differently, not very fluent in English, and they were like just trying to navigate walking everywhere and stuff. I just got curious. I started volunteering for International Rescue Committee, and like volunteering for the refugees, and just helping them navigate different things. But what really struck chord for me was the healthcare system, the language barrier, the health equity, like the health disparities, the socioeconomic disparities. It was huge, right? So when I would take them, and then there was like an influx of Bhutanese refugees that actually spoke my language, Nepali. So then I started helping them as like ad hoc interpreter,
Hmm.
taking them to their healthcare appointments and stuff. And I saw like their faces, they were like slowly disappearing, right? It's like, I mean, I was ad hoc interpreter, I wasn't trained at that time, so I didn't know all these like medical jargons. I didn't even know how to interpret those for them, right? And then I
Right.
find myself nodding, they are nodding, and like it's something struck me, like their dignity was like slowly kind of like dissolving, right? It's like they're not. Soon I felt like, I mean, are they even being treated like humans? We talk about human rights, and as Americans, we go to different countries and advocate for human rights for people in those countries. But inside our own country, are we really, advocates of human rights? So that's where it really kind of like started for me. That's why I started taking it very personal, from my personal journey to refugees. When my dad passed away in 2009, my mom and my sister joined me in the United States, and my mom also is a limited English speaker. So just helping her navigate things, and just seeing how her dignity is being affected. So it was just, I mean, it really kind of like really, I started taking it very personal. And then being a mom, I really now really want to create an environment where my daughter can thrive, my daughter can be who she is, regardless of like her parents' background or her skin color or hair color, eye color. I just want her to be herself and navigate this country like her own, and not be treated as a second class citizen. So that's where it is for me. It's very personal.
Yeah. I remember it is very personal, clearly. And, you really get to see when you can see that the same community that you live in isn't treating everybody, especially those who are the most vulnerable, with the same access that you have. It really bursts the bubble of, wait, I thought this was the country where everyone had an opportunity. And you really see the very clear stratifications that our country puts out for, depending on skin color, language, accent, nationality.
Exactly. There is like so many times, it's like, I'm sure you too, as you're raising your kids, it's like we walk into these spaces and you're reminded this space was not built for me in mind,
Mm.
not built for people like me in mind. And that's what I want to change. I want the decision makers to know, like, hey, when you build spaces, when you create meeting spaces inside your organizations, they're build it with people like us in mind as well. So I think that is the core of my work.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when we were talking, in preparation for today, we talked about, the names that we've given our kids. Do you
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about your decision around, and you don't have to tell us what your child's name is, but like, your decision around how to name your child?
Yes, I talk to my husband about this, my family about this too. Like, naming my daughter was like, it was very, one of the most difficult moments throughout my pregnancy was naming my daughter, because it was, because I was thinking about her future, right? And when I came to the United States as an international student, my name was always butchered. And I love my name. Like, I had a really great bonding with my grandfather, and my grandfather named me. My name is Kamana. It means a wish. And he said I was his wish come true. So
Yeah.
and I was his first grandkid. So I'm proud of my name. My name has a story behind it, my family, lineage and everything, right? So I'm like, and I wanted to, when we had when we got pregnant, we're like, we want to pass the heritage. We want to give a name to our daughter that also kind of like symbolizes our heritage and stuff. But then also, I don't want her name to be butchered, because I was in a situation where I was taking like this class, and there were only two students in a class. One was my roommate Jeanette and me, and the professor could never get my name correct with just two of us in class, right? And one time she called me Kamini, and you probably know what Kamini means.
Jeez.
It's not good, right? So it's like I was like very like humiliated, so
Yeah.
and for me, like I thought like, what if I came as when I was like like a teenager, like 19, whatever, right, to the
Yeah.
United States. I could defend myself, I could correct the teacher. But when my daughter goes to school, she go like is just a kid, and she still will not learn, like would not have learned how to correct people, or and it will affect her identity, right? Because then she might be like, I can't raise my hand up, like I'm that other kid. The teacher cannot get the name right, she will be embarrassed. It will affect her identity and stuff. So it was like such a struggle naming my daughter, but we ended up naming her Bristy. And I like obviously like sampled it with many like first English language speakers, and like, can you pronounce this? It's like Christy but with a B. And like, so then it was like, yes, like, okay, so my daughter's name is Bristy. It means like rain, more like shower of blessing kind of too in my language, and I think in Hindi as well. And I also found it's a really good like Bengali name too. So
Mm,
yeah.
that's really beautiful. Yeah, Marla Pelletier is on here saying naming your child what a juicy topic, and she also says I mean, yeah, South Asian names are so beautiful, and there are some that just it's just, I think what Marla's talking about here is so important, because well, it echoes what you're saying. But how will it be conveyed in English? How often will it be misspelled? How often will it be misspoken? Um,
And it has huge like implications for that child, right? You're
yeah,
like literally shutting that child in participating in like class, in being comfortable with their friends, if they're not able to pronounce their names. And like the kids are kids, and they will start making fun of their names and things like that. So it's been interesting. And I instill in Bristi like our cultural values, and like take her back to Nepal almost every year. We were just talking about that. So
yeah,
she also knows like, like the roots, right? Like where we come from and our origin. And yeah, it's really interesting, like raising a child in America in like this time, and um, being so far away from your country, and trying
yeah.
to, talk about like culture and language and all of that. It's difficult for immigrant parents.
When you were growing up in Nepal and right before you came here, is this um, topic of speaking about our culture and um, our identity and equity and justice, was that on your mind back then? Or like, how would it, when you go from the complexities between cultures, skin color, and accent and nationality in this country, and then you think about it from a Nepali point of view in Nepali society, where there is huge diversity of people and culture and languages and foods and accents. How do you see yourself kind of transposing like what you do here, in a way, to Nepali society.
Yeah. I think to a certain extent, like I was like even when I was in school, like I was the that kid that would go to the street with like a sign. And interestingly, like when I was growing up, like when I was more in like the high school phases, we had like a Maoist movement in Nepal, and that was huge. So it was more of like that Marxist like socialist movement, and it was based on like because of the class systems, right? So we have caste system in Nepal, which also in India. So there are so people were kind of like against that because it had real implications. Like they were like higher up castes were getting all of the important rules in the government and all of the important things everywhere, and the lower castes were being discriminated. So
Mhm.
yes, I was exposed to like the equity work, and I was interested in it, and passionate about it, even in Nepal, and I saw that in our societies. But the way we handle it in Nepal and the way we handle here in the US is different, right? In Nepal, there are like certain things like the LGBTQIA movement. It's big, like transgender. People, they have rights in Nepal. They can marry. They can, and they can self-identify and all of that. Like they have legal rights. I'm really proud of that. But Nepal has a long ways to go. And but Nepal is also not a country with like a lot of educated people, right? Our literacy rate is really low. We are one of like the poorest countries in the world. We are like, among one of the smallest countries in the world. But US is big. There's the literacy rate is high, and there's so much diversity in US. We have people from all over the world building this country, right? And we still struggle when it comes to DE&I work, and it always amazes me. Like, why does everybody freeze when it comes to DE&I work? And you just have to pay attention to all around you. You're surrounded with diversity. You're surrounded with lots of like great minds. So I definitely see in US, although there's a struggle, I am very hopeful that if anyone will get it right, it will be us.
Yes, that's very reminiscent of your name. The hope that
Yes.
you can achieve greatness. Indeed. I want to ask you, this LinkedIn Live series is about telling our audience that equity and inclusion is not just for people who dedicate their careers to it, and it's not just for chief diversity officers. It's every single one of us doing something small but meaningful on a daily basis. And I'm wondering, what are one or two things that people can do every day that actually isn't so taxing, or and isn't doesn't take up too much time?
Yeah, you're like spot on because equity, I look at equity, it's not just about systems, it's about our habits, right? So like the two concrete, like you talked about actionable steps, it can be like your everyday steps. Like, so just slow down, start listening to who's not being heard, right? That could be one. So when you start noticing, I think equity starts with noticing. When leaders start noticing, like in meetings, who always gets interrupted, or who even in your neighborhood, who is not showing up, and why are they not showing up? Do they have the same access that you do, right? And sometimes equity, it's not always about like adding more. It's about being more aware of who's already there but invisible, and who's not there also, right? So one would be that. The second would be just audit your everyday decisions through an inclusive lens, right? So feel what the other person would feel. It's not that difficult. Like if you were excluded as a child, if you couldn't join certain groups, like how did you feel?
Mhm.
Everybody has like an exclusion moment. Go back to that and feel like just get in touch with that and create, like, look at it from inclusive lens, right? So you don't have to do like these like grand gestures. It could be like small consistent changes. So who do you hire, for instance? Who do you promote? Who are you mentoring, right? Are you only mentoring people that you click with, or you can have conversations with, or it's like, or are you mentoring people who really need a mentoring? So I think there is no kind of like one size fits all, but like, everyday equity would look like something, small gestures like the two I mentioned.
Yeah, I love this line. Equity starts with noticing. It really should be your tagline. It's a great one. Maybe it is. Yeah, it really is. And I mean, that's our awareness. The more aware we are, the more we can change our habits. But it's really it's 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 really basic. I think you call it kind of like an everyday audit. Just check in and see like what
Yeah,
doesn't feel right.
exactly.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about the work you do within your own company. When you're driving change and suggesting things to leadership, what are some of the things that other organizations can do to really embed equity practice into their culture? Or what are some of the things that you are striving to do right now within your own company?
Yeah. I think like every organization, so first, like equity has to, it has to live, like I just talked about, it has to live in your everyday operations. And you cannot just look at equity as, oh, it's the work of like the DEI department, or it's in our DE&I statement, right? Or when most of the time what I've found out is like when we mention equity, leaders only think about pay equity, but it's
Yeah.
much bigger than like just pay equity. So it's not just your comp and benefits department and your DEI department that works on equity, but it's like everybody, right? So start asking those hard questions in every function, whatever function you're leading. Again, who's getting hired, who's getting promoted, who's getting mentorship, who is getting the flexibility that others are not, who's getting the grace that others are not, right? So you will learn a lot about accessibility and like equity there. So so if you value equity, start looking at how you design your job descriptions, how you run your meetings, how you set pay scales. If they're not embedded already in the day-to-day work you do, then it just becomes performative, right? And then the other thing I want to bring up is like center equity as a leadership competency and not just a compliance issue. So I talked about, like how equity doesn't just belong to the DE&I department and the comp and benefits department. It's like
Yep.
every leader, everybody's responsibility. Even like, Pooja, if your name gets mispronounced and uh, I encounter that, like, if I can just like stand up for you and be like, hey, her name is pronounced this way, that is like an everyday act of like, like equity as well.
Yeah.
It could be an individual contributor, you could be a leader, like anybody can do equity work, and everybody should do equity work in their everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. And when this continuing with what you said, if it's not baked into your processes and operations, it's just not only it's performative, but it's so much harder. Then you're
Mhm.
every time you're reinventing the wheel to issue
Exactly.
spot an equity issue, and that's really hard to do. If
Yeah.
it's not embedded, you're just making more work for yourself. It's like if you don't set up an accounts receivable department and you just do your invoices and you're like, I don't know if I sent one in. I don't know if there's any organization around that. Like, did someone send an invoice? Did we collect the money? I don't like that would never happen in any company.
Yes,
And yet here we
exactly.
are piecemealing DEI as if that's like efficient or effective. And it's
Mhm.
neither of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, those are two really solid points. I'm gonna take this snippet. I just marked down the minutes so that we can because that's really great. Um, so when you one thing we haven't gotten to yet is unlocking inclusion. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How, if at all, it differs from your everyday work, full-time work? Yeah, tell us what it is, how people can get in touch with your services there, the clients that you generally serve, stuff like that.
I am actually so excited about unlocking inclusion, and this is not like a new journey for me. It is a revamp of what I started back in 2012. So I had my own consulting business, and I named it Hamro America. And Hamro is a Nepali word that means ours. And the whole idea was creating our America, right? So while the sentiments are the same, it's like my consulting got like a facelift, a Botox, whatever you call it, and it's unlocking inclusion, and it's a revamped of Hammer America. And what I really hope to do with this is like I really want to create those unfreezing moments, right? Because I talked about like how even the greatest leaders I've seen, when you talk about like D&I, like they freeze. They're like, oh my God, I don't want to say anything wrong. Like I don't want to be labeled as a racist. Like this is not, and they go into like explaining why they said this and all. So I basically want to create that psychological safety for those leaders, create those unfreezing moments for them. Unfreeze from your fear of saying the wrong things, unfreeze from waiting on the perfect strategy, unfreeze from the idea of D&I belongs to somebody else, and just get up and do something. So I'm focusing a lot on creating tools for the leaders to unlock the inclusion in their teams themselves, hence unlocking inclusion. Because I truly believe every leader has that power to unlock inclusion. And these are just like everyday things you will just focus on, right? So that's what unlocking inclusion is about. A leadership practice basically, and I want to remind leaders that everybody is capable of unlocking inclusion. So that's what it is. We have some and language access is really important to me. So one of my first kind of like online courses that I've launched with unlocking inclusion is the 40-hour medical interpreter training program. So
Yeah.
bilingual speakers can take the training and be a qualified interpreter. They can then move on to like the national certification process and stuff like that. But language access, even in the world of AI, it's very important, because yes, maybe like AI can translate, but is it accurate? Is it going to translate human, sentiments, emotions, cultures, all of that? There's so many nuances. So yeah, like that's one of the courses that I've launched, which I'm really excited about.
I invite all of you who are attending, and we're going to put this on our LinkedIn also, but unlockinginclusion.com has an abundance of resources. You can check out all the packages there that Kamana and her team offer. There's a foundation package, there's a growth package, there's an impact package. It depends on where you are in your business. If you're just starting off and you're a small company, but you want to get it right, sign up with Kamana. If you're already established, but you're like, I forgot to include equity, administrative and operational like things in my company, I need help on how to like navigate that, call Kamana. Unlocking inclusion, you'll find blogs and other services and resources, and then lots of online training, which is so valuable. And the one you just mentioned is on the website, the interpretive services for healthcare. So thank you for offering such, like, this is such important work, and you've made it so accessible and available to all. So check it out, everybody. It's worth it. And connect with Kamana on LinkedIn. Connect with us if you haven't already. Kamana, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we end today?
I mean, Pooja, the work that you're doing is great. I really appreciate everything you're doing and everything your organization does. So thank you so much for having me. This was my first LinkedIn Live. I was scared to death, but it was fun.
It was, wasn't it? It was a good time. Well, thank you so much, Kamana. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.